Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town ran with Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for die-hard Houston sports fans from a die-hard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite die-hard Astros fan podcaster. I am a writer, actor, improviser, creative multi-hyphenate, but most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. You know, I was born on the northwest side, but we had to relocate. I lived in the Heights back when it was still a Hispanic and Latino neighborhood. On the corner, there was like a used car lot, and now I believe it's a big old high rise. You know, while I was born and raised in Houston, I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer out here in Los Angeles, and now, well, the career's going great. Of course, you can tell I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You start absentmindedly calling it the 10 instead of I-10, and you start podcasting. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports started as a passion project because most media is infuriating. As a diehard long-term fan of the Houston Astros, here we aren't doom and gloom casual fans, or worse, the national media haters. We love our teams and want to root them on and try to discuss the ins and outs of them without too much homerism. The key word, of course, here is try. I'd like to welcome returning listeners and welcome new listeners to what my brothers call the Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers. Shout out to my brothers. Shout out to Arrested Development fans. I'd like to let new listeners know to check out the blog. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my mumbles. As always, we're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. She's already been making noise. She's grumbling to be let outside. She is squeaking her toys. Carla, the dog, is here with me. Of course, the most popular and famous of the two of us on the podcast. Listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time, of course, because she's got the hot takes on this podcast, and I've got the cool, reasonable takes to calm down the reactionary clickbait artists and hot takers out there in the sports world. Here we believe if we're a fan of our teams, we want to kind of try to enjoy the experience a little bit. You know, there's so many crazy things going on in the world. We want to try to be less angry about sports, want to try to be reasonable here. I mean, even today, the Supreme Court just said that it's okay to racially profile me here in LA, which, you know, I know people don't tune into sports for politics, but it's just, yikes, you know, it's been a tough summer for your boy out here, and I truly can't believe what's happening right now. So we save the anger for stuff like that. We try to enjoy sports when we can, but what a tough call it's going to be for us this episode, folks. Your Houston Texans lost to the LA Rams yesterday, 9-14. It was not fun. The Houston Astros dropped a series to the South Oklahoma Rangers, which of course is not good. The battle for the silver boot is in the balance, folks. I honestly have to do the math. I think it's going to be a tie, or, you know, I have to look at it. But this season is a good season for the Texas Rangers against the Houston Astros, which is not what we want to see. But folks, I do want to wish a good day, mate, to all of my listeners out there before we completely move on into this episode. But let's get to it, folks. Let's talk about your Houston Texans. Just not a good weekend in LA for your boy from H-Town. Folks, we were very optimistic. We were very excited. We were very hopeful about your Houston Texans going into this season. We were cautiously optimistic about the offensive line. That was the phrase that we were using about the Houston Texans offensive line. And, I will say this. It doesn't seem like the offensive line took a huge step back without Laramie Tunsil, which was obviously the biggest fear of many critics of the offseason moves to improve this offensive line, where you are moving on from a Pro Bowl offensive lineman to kind of bring in some journeymen, kind of mix and match platoon offensive line. It didn't look significantly worse, but it definitely didn't look better. And last season's offensive line play was miserable. It hampered the Houston Texans offense all season long. It was definitely the thorn in our side and as fans. And, a lot of people were very critical of the team, saying this was going to make it worse. Well, I will say it didn't make the offensive line worse. But, dealing with a couple of injuries as well to the starting left tackle for the day, Cam Tom, my goodness. Let's see if I can pull up an injury report even right now. Having offensive line injuries, having to kind of get flexible there. I'm sure that was not exactly what the Texans had in mind. I can't find the injury report here. But, the fact of the matter is, injuries aside, is that this line did not do a good job in keeping CJ upright. They didn't really do a good job in the passing game. In the running game, I do have to say, the running game did look like it could have some momentum. It didn't blow me away. I'm not trying to, give it flowers. I'm just saying, I could see that potentially being a running game that you can build an offense around. However, they didn't do play action. They didn't really pass the ball. They had 151 passing yards in the game and 114 rushing yards in the game. Whereas it's a different team, but the LA Rams had a pretty potent offensive attack in the air with 224 yards. They only got 72 rushing yards, I should say. So the offense for the Texans really stalled. And in the offseason, the Texans got rid of the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, and they got Nick Caley to come in. And, Nick Caley is supposed to bring a completely different offense, but it really, really just seemed like it was more of the same from last season. And that's just saddening, watching the Ravens and the Bills go back and forth, both put up more than 40 points, seeing electric offenses of the NFL, and then going back and thinking about how the Houston Texans performed. It's humbling, is what I'll say. I told Sarah, it's like, really, it's humbling because you see that the Ravens and the Bills are truly in a tier that is not the same tier that my team is in. That is not how my team plays offense. That is not. The Rams and the Texans seem like they're in a tier together. No offense to the LA Rams or LA Rams fans. It's like these two teams can battle it out, and they're pretty evenly matched here. Those offenses on the Bills and the Ravens, that's what I want. I want some electric offense, and I know that C.J. Stroud can bring it. I feel pretty good about the receivers that we have. Let's see if I could look up the player stats here. Jaden Higgins had a 2 reception day for 32 yards. I know Nico Collins was very silent. We're trying to figure out why would you not get Nico Collins in the mix more. That's definitely one of the criticisms of offensive coordinator Nick Caley for Sunday's game. Nico Collins only had 3 receptions with 25 yards, and he was only targeted 5 times. Dalton Schultz was targeted 5 times as well. Whether it's like calling up play specifically for Nico, or just trying to game plan if you know that he's going to be doubled, if you see what the defense is giving you, maybe adjusting and trying to get Nico into the mix in the second half of the game. There was not a lot of adjustments in this game, it seemed like. It's frustrating, and we're very hopeful that this offense could really pick up and kind of give us a taste of what we can see this offense can become. We see the potential here in Houston. We're excited about C.J. Stroud. We know we have weapons, but the offensive line play just has got to change. And that's from somebody that's been telling y'all the Calamite, saying that losing Laramie Tunsil isn't the end of the world. And I still stand by that. I think, getting the results that you got all last season with the price that you were paying, or getting the results that you're getting from one game this season with hopefully better potential, I do understand why you would move on from Tunsil, why you would move on from Kenyon Green, but you need to see the results. You need to be able to compete. The reality of the situation is you can't win every game, but you can't win every possession. But it just seemed like the offensive line couldn't really figure it out, and the offense stalled and really couldn't figure out a way to score the ball when Kaimi Fairbairn is once again. I mean, we love Kaimi here in the podcast. He's an all-time leading scorer on the Houston Texans. Our kicker, of course. Most kickers are. That's nothing too crazy, of course. But we want to see them light it up more besides just Fairbairn. That's the sad part. There's lots of sadness right now. We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back to talk about your Houston Texans defense right after this.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel, Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr., and welcome back, and welcome to those of you who listen in the middle of the podcast. You started in the middle of the record. Folks, we're going to talk about your Houston Texans defense if we can. Carla is not too happy right now. She's not happy with how the Texans have played football. She's not happy with how the Astros have played. She's been really sad this weekend, and it's all the Houston team's fault. Not really, of course, folks. But, we saw the defense at SoFi going up against Matthew Stafford. And honestly, you got to be pretty happy with it. 14 points against the Rams. Obviously, it was frustrating to see Puka Nacua out there and kind of just eat everybody up, just carve up the secondary a little bit. I think I think a lot of that, the play action that they do, a lot of like trying to get Puka lined up against a good matchup really worked to their favor. Puka had 10 receptions on 130 yards in this game. So, that's definitely something to keep an eye on, in this defense, because that was definitely the Achilles heel that put the nail in the coffin for the Texans. But honestly, trying to be like, well, the Texans defense should have just held them to one touchdown is a little insane, So I'm not putting this loss on the defense in any kind of way. It's just a little takeaway, a little observation there, The Rams are just coached very well, and they were able to figure out a way to win. They were able to figure out a way to make adjustments on that offense. We're looking for those adjustments, and that's this is a new playbook. This is a new system. A lot of these players are kind of learning this, as they're going here. So, I'm not trying to put the nail in the coffin for the Houston Texans. We're not pulling out the official Space Cadet Sports Houston Texans panic meter on the season already. I know a lot of people out there are. We aren't there yet, folks. We're not calling the season, but we're just kind of looking at like, does this team have what it takes to do more than just win a division, and you can't just take that as for granted nowadays. Oh, they'll just win the AFC South. It's not that tough. The Jacksonville Jaguars are threatening. The Colts won a game. I mean, it looks like Daniel Jones is pretty good out there. Danny Dimes, so we'll have to see. But this defense, Carla, I can hear you. She thinks I can't hear her complain in the other room. She's hosting her own podcast over there right now, complaining about me and complaining about the Texans. It's okay, Carla. Oh, she's definitely not very happy today. I'm not really sure. I don't know. Is it like us? Is it because she's just as diehard of a fan as we are, and she's very frustrated with the Houston Texans? I'm not truly sure, but this defense did look good. It looked like it looks like once again the defense of the Houston Texans is not going to be its problems. It looks like penalties once again, a high amount of penalties in this game. Let's see if 11 penalties for 80 yards. Obviously that fumble Dare Ngumbawale gave up, but that was like the man's like second fumble in his entire career. A lot of fans, a lot of pundits, a lot of talking heads and podcasters have been out there, very critical that what was Dare even doing in there? That was a mistake. Dare shouldn't have been there. Well, Dare Ngumbawale is a captain on this team. He's been a captain on other teams. The guy is pretty darn good. I think the source of this is that, there's other running backs that could have been out there. Yes. However, right now it's a running back by committee. There's no Joe Mixon. Nick Chubb is not the answer to this team by any means. So they're going to have other people in and out and at different times. And if a play blows up, people will be there for different roles. But I don't think Woody Marks is already the answer this early on the season. And I like Woody Marks. I might even go so far as to say I love Woody Marks, and he could be a huge piece of this team going forward. But Dare Ngumbawale had 2 attempts for 9 yards on the game, averaging 4.5 yards per carry, obviously, for those of you who are math majors. Woody Marks actually played in this game. He had 3 attempts and got 3 yards. So I get it. Woody Marks might be more exciting. Woody Marks is the new toy that the Texans have, and because something bad happened, you're like, well, Woody Marks should have been in there. Well, calmate. Honestly, I think Woody Marks did have an opportunity in this game, and he just wasn't able to do much with it. Sadly, Dare Ngumbawale was in there, fumbled the ball, and just had a really bad day on his career. We stand Dare on this podcast, and I'm not going to take too much Ngumbawale slander. I get it. He's not your household name, but he is a solid player, and he deserved an opportunity in week 1 over a rookie who didn't have much success on the game either. So that's just how I feel. I know everybody has differing opinions, but I really I think in this game I'm pretty happy with what I saw from the defense overall. We can't blame too much of the special teams on this one either. We're just all harshly looking at that Houston Texans offense to see if it is going to be any different than last season in terms of play calling, in terms of offensive line play, and keeping CJ upright so that we can pass the ball. We know that this team can do it. We definitely just really want to see it. In fantasy football sports world, folks, obviously those of you who follow along with Paul's picks know that I've had a tough week. I am begging for this Monday night football game to go my way so I could break 500. Ooh, it's not going to be a fun podcast when I make picks in the middle of the week here. Oh man, I'm going to have to eat some crow and try to figure out a way to change my strategy I took some swings this week. It didn't work out in my favor, so I hope the odds were ever in your favor, because they did not do too well with me on my fantasy football side for the Thunder Bears League. On talking a little bit of positivity here, trying to find some kind of silver lining. I am completely destroying one of my best friends in fantasy football. Take that, Brian Nichols. Amazing man, amazing father, great comedy writer. Take that. I hope it tastes foul. You loser. You lost. You got the shape of an L on your forehead. You're an L7 wiener, Brian Nichols. And you know what? I'm going to clip this and I'm sending it directly to him. I'm not going to just say... I hope he hears this trash talk. Folks, look, Brian Nichols is great at fantasy football. He's great at life. He has to wear some L's in this world. It looks like I'm going to beat him, honestly, like 116 to 109 if there's no corrections in the scores here. Honestly, the reason I did so well this week is I drafted well with my second pick. I went with Bijan Robinson, or Bijan. Oh gosh, I wrote it down phonetically and I don't have it in front of me. Once again, I'm failing saying people's names correctly. I apologize. I mean, no disrespect, Mr. Robinson, but he got me 25 points all on himself, all by himself. I drafted a kicker well. I got Calvin Little. Cam Little. That's how you do it, folks. You want to get a good kicker. That's how you win your league. I kind of just got lucky with Kyler Murray and Alvin Kamara to help carry the team, because a lot of my point getters were on the bench. I had Zach Charbonnet. I had Keenan Allen. And last night I even had Keon Coleman. He had 23 points on the bench in my half PPR league. I couldn't start him. I really thought I started Chris Olave over him. I started David Montgomery over him, even Terry McLaurin and T. Higgins. And if those of you know that those folks did not have great weeks, so we're gonna have to hopefully shuffle it up. But I got lucky with some people really carrying my team. I mean, you have to show up when somebody like Brian Nichols is going up against you. You have to show up to put him in his place and show absolute dominance. So the main stagers, Jason Terry main stage, my team, it looks like we're gonna go to 1-0 on the season. Thank God. I needed some kind of happiness, because, folks, we have some Astros news to talk about on the other side of this break, and that ain't too fun either. We'll be right back, folks.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel, Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., and we're talking about Houston Astros baseball. Folks, we're going to do a separate Astros podcast, or maybe it'll be an article. Definitely check the blog for that if it isn't in your RSS feed, wherever you listen to this podcast on. Go further into detail about your Houston Astros. But today is more of a football podcast, as the Astros have an off day. They just wrapped up a series against the Texas Rangers that didn't go my way, didn't go the Astros way, and you're probably an Astros fan, so you're probably pretty frustrated by it too. It was terrible like Sunday for us. The Astros losing 2-4 against the South Oklahoma Rangers, dropping that series, dropping another series. First they'd lose a series to New York, then they drop into a series to the Rangers. It was tough. Fromber pitched in that game. He after cross up gate, he did not pitch with Salazar. He pitched with Yainer Diaz as his battery mate in the game. The Texas Rangers had a lot of that replaying all over their TVs in the arena. They're definitely. There was worry for me as the Astros were not doing well and Fromber was on the mound. But Fromber had a really great day. He still got a quality start as he went 6 innings, and one of those runs was given up by an error. So he did get the stat of a quality start. He said he wanted to come in and be more chill. He was able to have some chill moments after, a bit of a scandalous run there. I've said my piece. We'll talk about it more on the next episode. But, I think it just wasn't enough. This Astros offense, it went off on Saturday, winning the game 11-0 in a Hunter Brown, Jacob deGrom matchup that the Astros completely blew up, getting 8 runs past the 8th inning in that game. Yordan Alvarez hitting a solo home run. Yordong to go long. Once again, Diesel showing up against Jacob deGrom in a electric pitching matchup, and you'd love to see the Astros just continue to put runs on the board. It's something that hasn't happened very frequently this season. And then the bats go quiet in the next game. In the first game of the series, they lost 3-4. I feel like I might have mentioned that was in a previous something or other, but it was tough, folks. And, the last game of that New York series, there's more scandalo. Taylor Trammell's back was picked up because it was too colored, as in like two-toned, I don't. The league basically said there was no competitive advantage. That's a non-story. There's no competitive advantage from that bat. It just was not something they liked. So there's all kinds of just bad vibes in the Astros sphere right now. So let's take a look at the Houston Astros, or I should say the Space Cadet Sports Houston Astros official panic meter. Right now it's we're trying to get our mojo back. We're going to leave it there right now. I think the Astros need to win this series, or at least compete in this series upcoming tomorrow against the Blue Jays, or the panic really is going to start setting in. I think this team is very fortunate to be where they are. They are 78-66, 2.5 games ahead of the Seattle Mariners for the American League West right now. While they haven't been playing offense that I'm excited to watch, they have overall had a decent offense this season, which has been even more frustrating that they only struggle with runners in scoring position. They only struggle in situational hitting. Generally, their offense is not too terrible. Their pitching is incredible. Their bullpen and relief pitching has been great. This team has defied so many odds, but just cannot seem to hit situationally. Yet they're still first in the American League West, and that's not why we're not completely panicking yet. We're trying to get our mojo back, right, folks? So whatever you got to do to get your mojo back as a Houston Astros fan, go ahead and do that and figure that out. We'll definitely talk more about your Houston Astros, the way they played against the Texas Rangers, kind of the pitching matchups for the Toronto Blue Jays, the Canadian Astros. We're going to talk about that on another podcast or another article, because what I have to do to get my mojo back right now is go take care of Carla, because that girl is being very vocal right now. She needs me. We're going to go give her some attention, folks. And with that being said, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, smash all of those buttons for me. We are a small podcast, and we only go as far as our listenership takes us. We're supported by listeners like you. So please share with the Houston fan or Australian in your life and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. Folks, that is as good as gold. That is the best way to support the podcast and support me, honestly. It's better than just sending me $20. But you can still send me $20 if you'd like. Just give me a 5-star rating, please. And check out the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you could subscribe for free and get every podcast, every article, and every meme dump. Almost everything I do on that Substack is not behind a paywall. Subscribe for free today. Or if you would like to support, you gave me that 5-star review, you're all finding another way to support me, you can become a premium subscriber. Build that premium community with me and let me know what you'd like those perks to be to help financially support me here at the podcast. Folks, I want to know your takes. What are you thinking? How are you feeling out there in podcast land about just a tough weekend for Houston fans? I mean, Saturday was great with the Cougars and the Astros, but Sunday just really came crashing down on us. Let me know how you're feeling on social media at Space Cadet Sports, on Instagram, Threads, at Space Cadet Sports Pod.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Let me know what you think, folks. I want to know what you think, as long as you're not coming crazy or trolling. You know, that's what gets you blocked. But I do want to know your opinions. If you're wondering how you can support, you don't want to do premium, well, you can get a hat. You can get some merch from me. That's right, we sell hats. Cam Smith aircraft carrier hats. Don't sleep on Houston basketball hats, or even Carla the dog hats in H-Town blue. Go ahead and check that out at paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net. And if you've gotten this far and you'd like more weird jokes, you can find me, Paul, on social media, making jokes, meme, arts, podcasts, and so much more at Paul Salazar JR, or like I mentioned earlier, paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net, where you can find my other Substack and all my other nonsense if you're nasty. Thanks for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.